I think that if all of our wealth could be recorded on a ledger on the internet, we would need the kind of hash power that is formidable enough to withstand any kind of adversarial attack. Mm-hmm. So yeah, building cities has been done, protecting cities has been done with militaries. How can we shift a lot of the protection of those ownership rights to Bitcoin's hash power? And that's what we're looking to do with Bitcoin Magic.
The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness, 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 You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure.
Welcome to One Love Bitcoin. I'm Dred, your host. My goal is to go around the world and talk to one Bitcoiner from every country and learn a thing or two along the way. This week, we're going to Cameroon, to the Boya Mountains, to talk with Chia Minang, the founder of a company called Jangi, which is kind of like Partner Draw in Jamaica. And also, he's the founder of Bitcoin Mountain, which is a community similar to Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, but now in Cameroon as well. These kind of communities are popping up all over the world. So I had the pleasure at the Africa Bitcoin Conference to speak with Chio about Bitcoin Mountain and about his journey down in the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I'm trying out this new background, so we'll see if I like it or not. I don't know. It's very big, but we'll see if I keep it in the future episodes. Let me know what you think. Give me your comments down below, and let's see if this background works or not. This week, we're gonna have a faucet for people in Cameroon. So if you're Cameroonian and you want some free Bitcoin via your Lightning wallet, go to cameroon.onelovebitcoin.com. It's cameroon.onelovebitcoin.com. Make sure you have a Lightning wallet that is a URL, the LN URL enabled Lightning wallet. Scan the code and get some free Bitcoin. If you don't know what that means, just Google it or message me and we can help. All right, as usual, if you are in the US and you want some Bitcoin, you can buy it at Swan Bitcoin. There's many ways to custody your Bitcoin, so don't leave it on exchanges. Don't even leave it on Swan. Take it off, put it in your hardware wallet, put it on your phone. Wherever you do, make sure you self-custody it. And if you are anywhere else in the world, peer-to-peer exchange works very well as well. So join a peer-to-peer group, whether it's Telegram, Bisq, RoboSats is really good nowadays. I really like RoboSats actually, so look that up too. And I'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Anyway, Fulljoy this one. Fulljoy this one, and one love.
Present to you, sweet mother. Sweet mother, I no go forget you. For the suffer where you suffer for me. Sweet mother, I no go forget you. For the suffer where you suffer for me.
I don't even know what to ask. Usually I'm prepared. Usually I have like, first at least Google mapped out where Cameroon is, and then find all the major cities. Then I'll usually dig into Wikipedia and find out history about the city and history about the country and dig into the community and see what you guys have done. I've done none of that.
That's okay. We were just freestyling.
Yeah. So, but still, welcome to One Love Bitcoin.
Thank you.
Chia Minang.
Yeah.
It's amazing to meet you. Everything you're doing is kind of aligned with all the other community projects I've seen, except, of course, you're going to be unique in your own way because, Cameroon is a unique country to everywhere else.
Yeah.
So first, tell the people about your story. How did you get into Bitcoin? And tell us about Cameroon and Bitcoin Mountain too. But welcome.
Thank you for having me. Actually, my story before getting to Bitcoin was one of discovery. In a sense that in 2005, when I was in high school, I stumbled upon a book in the library, and the title was Worlds Apart. And it was explaining why the West seems to be developing quite exponentially, and Africa seems to be stagnant somewhat in terms of development. But what they settled to was that there are institutions in the West that would protect private property rights, right? So if people have private property rights, there's a basis, therefore, to have an instrument to create wealth for themselves, right? So ever since that time, I've been trying to figure out ways to engage in the process to build institutions in my home country, Cameroon, that would guarantee private property rights. Now, before Bitcoin, we imagined that private property rights could only be guaranteed by good governance, right? So
By the state.
By the state, exactly. So from that point on, I was looking at, how to build the right institutions, right, that would make the state to guarantee private property rights. Now that led me to another interesting book. It's called The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. And in that, he was explaining that merely having functioning land registries for countries could unlock a lot of wealth that is tied up to land, right? So a lot of Africans have land, but because it's not titled, they have no basis to use that as an asset to get access to financing and grow their businesses. So I started looking at that through, okay, what are the endeavors that could be made to ensure a functioning land registry?
This is also something that I've seen in other countries too. That same lack of a title not only doesn't allow them to monetize their land, but it also doesn't allow them to protect their land, right?
Exactly.
Because anybody could come and now claim a piece of it or do whatever they want. They have no way to say this is my geographic property.
Exactly. So again, then the progression led to something else, which was, well, land is not something that we could carry with you. So I started looking at other aspects that Africans have, which is knowledge, all right? So that shifted now from land registries to institutions that would protect intellectual property rights, right? So again, I was exploring a lot of that, which naturally led me now to Bitcoin. In the sense that Bitcoin is the first asset, the first knowledge asset, because ownership of Bitcoin is just the knowledge of a secret in your head, you see. So we moved from thinking about property rights as the basis of wealth creation, figuring out ways to guarantee the property rights by starting with the state, and then that being land, and then moving on to think and say, but you can't, land is not portable, right? So the only thing that you could carry with you everywhere is knowledge. So how do we protect, intellectual property rights? To discovering Bitcoin, which is the protection of intellectual property rights, which is your secret code, except not by government, but by cryptography. So it was an elegant solution to what I'd been preoccupied with for many years. So I was led, therefore, to Bitcoin. I would say Bitcoin is a discovery for me. That happened in 2012. At the time, I was in Denmark. So I moved back to Cameroon, having figured out the ultimate solution to the question I've been pondering for all these years. And it was that I was going to build a business on the Bitcoin standard. Now, I wasn't sure what exactly that business would be, but I felt, okay, if I start a community, right, first of all, with education, just sharing that knowledge with other people, with a collective of other people, we could ponder different ideas and then figure out what Bitcoin business we could start.
So the community was just kind of a means to an end when you started.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the first thing was to get many more people interested in Bitcoin and have knowledge as to what that would be. And again, given that I figured out that one of the most important assets is not even land, it's knowledge and intellectual property. If I teach many more people about Bitcoin, in a sense, I'm increasing the Bitcoin wealth.
Yes.
We just need to figure out ways to register the wealth, the knowledge that we've created, and be able to sell that and make more Bitcoins, if you will. So I started a company called Jangi, and I'll tell you why I picked the name Jangi. Nigeria, of course, in Africa is the more popular country. So they have uh, rotating savings and credit associations. It's prevalent across Africa, but in Nigeria they call them susus, right?
Yeah.
Good.
In Jamaica, even though it's very informal, call it partner draw.
Partner draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
But susu, same kind of rotating. But you get a draw 1 month.
Exactly. Yeah. So in Cameroon, we call those jangis. Yeah. So for that reason, because I felt that because you don't need permission in a sense to engage with Bitcoin, and because Bitcoin is a network, right, of nodes, I felt that, okay, that is quite similar to the way this groups work. People come together and they could verify the transactions that are happening within the group quite informally. So I picked the name Jangi for the company, Jangi Systems, actually. So the name of the company is Jangi Systems, but the brand, of course, is Jangi. And with that, I felt it would be an organization that I could use to create other products. So initially, we said that Jangi Systems was a company that would build Bitcoin products, services, experiences, and transformations. By products, it would be, I don't know, an exchange, whatever. Services could be consulting. Experiences would be maybe conferences and meetups and stuff like that. And then transformations for us would be that certain ethos that comes with Bitcoin culture. And if you imbibe that philosophy, there is a certain integrity that you would have. There's certain respect that you would have for work. Because, I mean, one of the ethos of Bitcoin is proof of work, right? To get anything, you need to work for it. So we felt that the kinds of transformations that we bring to the audience that we're serving, the one that would give them an integrity, first of all, respect for work, and to know that with work you can create wealth for yourself and protect that wealth with cryptographic keys, so your keys, your coins, and things like that. So Bitcoin products, Bitcoin services, experiences, and transformations. That's how we started out. And then we discovered Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, right? What was especially interesting with that is Bitcoin Beach was the harbinger to El Salvador as a country adopting, Bitcoin as legal tender. Yes. So for Cameroon, of course, if we want to make Bitcoin legal tender at the nation state level, you need to be in a position of power, right? But because we're not in that position yet, we felt, okay, we could start a smaller community, right? And hopefully bootstrap that and then gain the attention of, those that are in positions of power at the nation state level to engage more seriously with Bitcoin. Okay. So we did the Bitcoin Mountain, right? Because the area that we're covering, so first of all, there is a mountain, but the tallest peak in all of West Africa is called Mount Fako or Mount Cameroon, if you will.
So let's back up because some people in the West won't even really know where Cameroon is in the first place, much less the geographic topology of it.
So again, before I made allusion to Nigeria and Susu before talking about Jangi, because I know that Nigeria is the more popular country in Africa. I mean, we have to give them their kudos. So we are a neighboring country to Nigeria, which is the east of Nigeria. Matter of fact, interesting story. Once upon a time, there was a part of Cameroon that was governed together with Nigeria, the English-speaking side of Cameroon. So Cameroon is a bilingual, bijural, and as a consequence, bicultural country. There is an English-speaking region and a French-speaking region.
The two different halves of colonization.
Yes, yes. As much so originally it was colonized by the Germans.
And are they still German-speaking Cameroon?
No, there isn't. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been about 100 years ago. So originally it was the Germans, and then after the First World War, the Germans were defeated in Cameroon by the French and British. Right. So with that alliance, they were able to split the country in half. So the British took one part, the French took another, but then the British took their part of the country and merged that with Nigeria and governed that as one bloc. It was only much later, in 1961, that the English side gained independence and joined, the French-speaking side of the country.
Okay.
So that's how what used to be two different countries governed by France and Britain came together after independence in 1961. So Bitcoin Mountain is found in the English region,
Okay.
around the Boya Mountain area.
Boya Mountain area.
So about Boya Mountain area. So Boya Mountain or Mount Fako or Mount Cameroon. These are three names that the mountain has. You could call it Boya Mountain, you could call it Mount Fako, or you could call it Mount Cameroon. So that is the tallest peak in all of West Africa.
Mhm.
And it's also along the Atlantic coast of West Africa.
Okay.
Right. So we have two, I would say, key natural features. We have a volcanic mountain.
Is Mount Bako a volcano?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But we're not active. The last time we had volcanic activity with eruptions and lava flow and all of that was in 1999.
That's not too long ago.
Okay,
If you think about it.
if you think about it, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So there was volcanic activity in 1999. There was a volcanic flow. So it flew from the mountain
Mhm.
right down to the sea. Right.
Wow.
So if you visit, when Paco was in Cameroon, we did take him to the site to visit. So you could actually see the solidified magma.
Mhm.
There's plenty of vegetation on it now because you know that volcanic soil is fertile soil.
It creates land.
It creates land and
Mhm.
things like that. So we have the mountain, volcanic. We have the lava flow and the solidification. That's a touristic site today. And then we have, the ocean, the beach, right?
Mhm.
The Atlantic Ocean. So we felt that we could carve out an area called Fako. It's a division in Cameroon where you have 4 cities. There's Boya, Limbe, Chico, and Wuyuka. Now, across those 4 cities, there are 500,000 people. And we felt that we might be able to orange peel if we put in the work, say 10% of that, we're good with 10%. So that would be 50,000 people. So the mission, therefore, of Bitcoin Mountain is to orange peel 50,000 people that are living around the mountain area along the Atlantic coast of Cameroon, right? Now, having carved out that area, and mind you, remember that we started Jangi, the company.
Yeah.
We were training people,
Mhm.
which people we could use to build Bitcoin products, services, experiences, and transformations. With that team, we were able now to set up this community called Bitcoin Mountain
Okay.
that would cover that area around the mountain. All right. Now, the next phase of our project was to build a bank. Because we didn't want this to be a not-for-profit. We saw it more as a startup society,
Okay.
right? Like a special economic zone, if you will.
Okay.
So if you think of, say, places like Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shenzhen, and I think Shanghai too, China. Because, when Hong Kong reunited, if you will, with mainland China,
Nice word to use.
I think
That's a nice word to use, reunited.
well, I mean, that was the case. What happened in China? The British took it away from the Chinese with the Opium War.
Previously, not just recently.
Not recently.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the terms was that the British would run it for 100 years and they would have to return Hong Kong
Right.
to China. So in a sense, I'm not from Hong Kong, but what the history says, it used to be China,
Yeah.
and then the British came and conquered it with the Opium Wars. But then the promise that the British made was that they would have to return it in 100 years
Mhm.
to China, right? So I think it was in 1997 that Hong Kong had to go back to China, although there was some arrangement
For years they were saying it, and it didn't happen yet. And the
Okay.
Chinese kept on saying, it hasn't happened.
it hasn't happened.
yet.
Okay, yeah.
But
So
yeah, so I don't know how the democracy have muddied the waters there
Yeah.
in terms of what should have happened. But
yeah, but in any case, Hong Kong was a model for China to learn the requirements for development, the kinds of institutions that you would need for development, right? So China, therefore, was able to make Shenzhen and Shanghai as special economic zones that were modeled after Hong Kong, You
Okay. Okay.
right? So now we're imagining Bitcoin Mountain to serve as a startup society that has the right set of laws that protects private property rights. And mind you, if Bitcoin Mountain is built on the Bitcoin standard, it means that these private property rights are guaranteed by cryptographic keys, by the Bitcoin blockchain and things like that. Right. So if we were able to build special economic zones in Dubai and Singapore and Hong Kong, and even in mainland China with Shenzhen and Shanghai, with the protection of private property rights by government. Imagine what we'll be able to build if we had the protection of private property rights by incorruptible computer code.
Yeah. See, it's unstoppable by any kind of influence or
exactly
government external pressure to follow any ideological law or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then apart from that, you now have access to global financing, because if you're to set up a special economic zone, there are other tools that you would need to be able to attract capital to that area. I suspect that for Dubai, maybe the government would have to get into special arrangements with, I don't know, the World Bank, the IMF, or other international financiers to bring capital to Dubai. Right? Maybe that's why they'll have to set up the, I don't know, Dubai International Financial Center, things like that. But then if you have a zone that you've carved out, and you say that the private property rights will be guaranteed by incorruptible computer code that everybody can audit, I think that your chances of pulling capital to that area are orders of magnitude greater than previously when you depended on government.
Because money will go where it's treated best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So education was the first, then setting up the community, then setting up the physical area that we want to transform with Bitcoin as the guarantor of private property rights.
And how did you, or I guess, what step are you in that part now, the actual physical area?
Good. So like I said, Bitcoin Mountain, if you check on btcmaps.org, so you see the area that it covers. But I mentioned that it's 4 cities. So there's Boya, which is closest to the mountain. Then there is Limbe, which is closest to the ocean. So there's a beach in Limbe.
Okay.
So of course, when we start attracting Bitcoin tourists and stuff like that, if you want to go surfing, you go to Limbe. If you want to go hiking, you go to Boya. And Moika provides a lot of land for agriculture, right? So maybe if we're interested in, I don't know, regenerative agriculture, we could look at areas like that, or to set up plantations as an economic activity. Tico, the other city, they're trying to do an international airport. I think the government is trying to do it. Yeah, so we feel that
is that closer to the Nigerian side?
No, it's closer. Tico is closer to the French Cameroon side.
Okay.
Right. While Boya and Limbe are close to the Nigerian side. Yeah, but in any case, they're all very close cities. So in our mission, those are the 4 cities that we want to transform.
Okay.
By building infrastructure, essentially building the city, but on the Bitcoin standard. So think of it as a special economic zone or a startup city, but built on the Bitcoin standard. So the next thing in our roadmap was energy infrastructure, because you can't do work without energy. Even humans would have to eat food to have the energy to do any kind of work. Right. So if you want to industrialize, the condition is to have cheap energy. You can't industrialize without cheap energy.
What does energy look like right today in Cameroon?
Very expensive.
Okay.
We don't have the transmission infrastructure. Of course, we have, a lot of renewable energy potential. So there are a lot of rivers, and Boya Mountain is a volcanic mountain. Yeah. So I don't know if the research has been done as to how we could tap geothermal or something of the sort. That is stuff that we'll start looking into now that we are very keen on developing that area. But for certain, there's plenty of potential for solar, there's potential for hydro. And again, Bitcoin is great in terms of storing all that energy, right? You just need to set up a mine, and then you're tapping all that energy and converting to Bitcoin. So even if we don't have the money to start to build the transmission infrastructure, we at least could mine the Bitcoins with all this free renewable energy
In place without needing transmission.
without needing transmission, but then use the money now to start rolling out the transmission infrastructure.
Yep.
Now with that, we would have the cheap energy to set up factories, so we could do manufacturing. We could start talking about industrialization, because you can't talk about industrialization without cheap energy.
Yeah.
So these are the different steps. So number one, educate the people. Number two, build a community. Number three, set up a bank that would finance mining, because with that you now have Bitcoin, whose value would appreciate to afford the setup of industries that will be powered by the cheap energy that you started mining, right? And with manufacturing, you now have goods and services that make people live, prosperous life.
Almost setting up a circular economy.
Exactly.
From the energy.
From the energy.
Up.
Kind of. Yeah. And we've done this before, like the examples that I gave. We've done this in Dubai, we've done this in Singapore, we've done this in Hong Kong. The Chinese learned from Hong Kong to do Shenzhen and Shanghai, but then that was mostly through government guarantees. But now we could do startup societies with the private property guarantees of hash power on Bitcoin, if you will.
Amazing. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make sense to recreate the wheel, especially if it's a perfect template for what we're doing, except improving upon it with cryptographic protection versus legal. Yeah. What made you decide to use 4 cities as your template to start versus one, like, El Salvador used El Zonte as only one city first. Bitcoin Lake is only using Panajachel as one city first. What made you feel like the 4 cities was important?
So even though in El Salvador they started out with El Zonte, ultimately the Orange filled the entire country. They did, right? So they started with 1. I think we should be more ambitious. They started with 1. I'll start with 4. Another person could start with an entire country. I don't know, but it was possible to do all 4, and that's because these 4 cities all surround the mountain. So if I said Bitcoin mountain, right? It's not just Boya that is around the mountain. Limba is also around the mountain. Tico is around the mountain. Moyucas is around the mountain. So I didn't want to take away from those other cities.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. Matter of fact, those 4 cities are part of a I think we call them divisions, right? It's called Fako division.
Is that the same as like well, in Jamaica it would be a parish, but I guess in the US a state? Or a county, maybe?
A county, we go. Okay. Or I don't know what is above a county, but so within the county, do you have other districts within that county?
Cities.
Cities. Okay, good. Yeah. So let's say a county then.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. So so it's a county, right? And all those cities in that county surround the mountain. So I think it makes sense, therefore, to say if we're going to call it Bitcoin Mountain, and you have all these cities that surround that mountain, it's only fair to the other cities to make them part of Bitcoin Mountain. And then the tourism angle, like some people come for the mountain, some people come for surfing. Why don't we just make them have the full experience, right? You come to Bitcoin Mountain, you could go hiking, you could go surfing.
So you haven't had any huge groups come to Bitcoin Mountain yet?
Oh, not yet, but we've had a lot of interest. So mind you, we are 3 months old. We actually set up when Fako was in Cameroon.
And this is Fako from Run with Bitcoin.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Fako de la India.
Fako de la India. We had quite a memorable time in Cameroon. We took him all around. We took him to the mountain. We took him to the beach. We showed him some realistic project we're looking to do. So we're actually in discussions to acquire 21 hectares of land.
Ooh.
Yeah, 21, right? Like 21 million. To build the first, you could say, Bitcoin, what I call it, the neighborhood or a city. I don't know if 21 hectares is big enough to be called a city, but well, it would be a realistic project that is planned. I know, like in Dubai, they have or at least what we've seen, you would have I think you would have a design for how a certain area would look like, the houses, the roads, the schools, and everything, the entire community.
Yeah.
There will be, I think our term is an offset plan, and then people could start purchasing.
Sounds like city planning.
City planning, yeah, stuff like that, yeah. So again, all of this is supposed to be a model for how you could build cities in other places. So if we have the knowledge and the wherewithal to start, then it can be an example for other people. And maybe doing this would have given us the experience to be the people that will be approached by governments, maybe in Cameroon, like, okay, apparently you guys have figured this thing out. What can we learn from you to be able to replicate the same in other areas in the country? So instead of going to the government and say, hey, give us land, we figured out how to purchase the land ourselves, allocate plots, come up with 3D designs of how houses could look like, and then build them, and then offer, mortgages and things like that. Because in Cameroon, I suspect in other places in Africa, if you want to have a house, you have to buy the land yourself, build the house before you move in, and that could take, I don't know, anywhere from 6 to 10 years.
There's no market for, existing lots with lands you can repurchase or resell.
No.
So if you have a house that you've built with the land on it and you want to sell it, that's not a possibility.
We don't have a huge market for stuff like that. Most people build their own houses.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So again, this would allow people to be able to finance a house over a long period. So we could build, an entire city, neighborhood. I'm not sure what the.
And sorry, I'm going to dig in on this, but
Yeah.
it's so different than the culture in America and even in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Is it because people who have the land and build their house, those houses end up being like multi-generational, or they keep it within the family?
Yes.
It's not something they usually try to sell. It's something that you have and pass on.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also think that we haven't built yet the finance infrastructure to allow for mortgages. Right.
Okay.
So I'm excited because now we have the opportunity to build those kinds of financial services so that people could have access to mortgages, car financing, student loans, even. And of course, that would significantly boost the economy and improve again the lives of our people. Because for me, it's just how do we create prosperity, at home. And we don't even have to do much. We just have to look at what has been done in other places and then replicate that, but with better guarantees. In this case, the guarantees that Bitcoin provides, cryptographic guarantees and hash power. Because for me, I think what really makes Bitcoin such a force, it's the defense mechanism on the blockchain, which is the record of I was watching I've been following a lot the work of Jason Lowry. I'm sure
Jason P. Lowry.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And he formulates Bitcoin as using energy to defend property in cyberspace. Right. So if Bitcoin's blockchain is going to be a store of all of our wealth, then there has to be a mechanism to protect that wealth. So in 3D space, you would need militaries and things like that. But in cyberspace, you would need hash power. Right. So I think that if all of our wealth could be recorded on a ledger on the internet, we would need the kind of hash power that is formidable enough to withstand any kind of adversarial attack. So yeah, building cities has been done, protecting cities has been done with militaries. How can we shift a lot of the protection of those ownership rights to Bitcoin's hash power? And that's what we're looking to do with Bitcoin.
That's amazing, and the vision is grand. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants, with the previous communities. But I love how it's showing the scalability potential for it. What I guess weak points or gaps do you see in this plan in terms of Bitcoin being positive impact in Bitcoin Mountain and Cameroon in general, because this is eventually going to spread to the whole
Yes.
country, right?
Yes.
What I guess, not to say threats, but yeah, what hurdles do you see or do you anticipate facing as you build it out or as the country builds it out?
So for me, I always, there's this quote that I keep thinking about, and it says that more important than the destination is the journey, right? So I'm very passionate about Bitcoin and the promise that it has. So I'm not so worried about the things that could go wrong. My primary concern is to just start. I know that some things will go wrong, but I know that we would figure it out as we go along. So I haven't really taken the time to think about what will go wrong, because you would never know what will go wrong. If you know in advance what will go wrong, then it would not go wrong because you put things in place. But so for me, it's accepting that you're starting from a place of ignorance, but you would have to experiment so that you gather knowledge as to what did go wrong, and then you try to fix that and all. And what even makes me to be even more confident. For example, I started a training program for Bitcoin developers.
Okay.
Right?
This is like a bit devs in Cameroon.
In Cameroon, right? Online as a Telegram group.
Okay.
So the first thing is I made the fees to be $10,000 US, right? In Cameroon. And guess what? I had 20 people sign up.
What?
Yeah.
And paid?
Okay, so this is the other thing.
What is happening right
Okay, so now the contract was pretty interesting. So the contract was, the training would be for 12 months.
Okay.
It would cost $10,000.
Okay.
But then you would only pay the $10,000 if you have a job as a big dev. So if you don't have a job, you don't pay.
I see.
But if you do have a job, then you would pay this $10,000 across 5 years. So it means we would deduct $200 from your pay as a big dev every month for 5 years. So that it's, like, but what's interesting is the true value, at least in my estimation, wasn't $10,000. Maybe it's $5,000. But I put $10,000 as a hedge because I don't expect all 20 students to find jobs as big devs.
You don't think so?
Well, maybe it's possible, but I'm just saying it's my own insurance policy. That if out of 20 people, 10 find jobs, it means I could take the $50,000 that I've made from 10 people to offset the losses in terms of my time training from those who didn't find jobs. So it's kind of like a job insurance type scheme where you train a pool of people. Some of them find jobs, others don't. But then the money you've made from those who do find jobs offset the losses from those who don't. The other thing is, again, because Bitcoin is a global ledger, right? That could be structured into some kind of financial product. Think of it as you remember mortgage-backed securities, right? Good. So what if we had a student loan? CDOs, right? So what if we had student loan-backed securities? So we could say these are 20 students that are studying Bitcoin development. We structure their contracts and then we put that on the blockchain, right? Now, any Bitcoin enthusiast across the world could buy a piece of that contract because they know they will get, income from their future earnings after 5 years. They might, right?
Because if that student doesn't get it, then.
But that's the same thing with every. Right? Because it is possible that the mortgage should not be paid.
Yes.
But then you could create tranches, if you will. You could say, okay, this would be. You could rate them. This would be AAA. This would be
recreating 2008 all over again. All over again.
Sure, but
just with on the backs of an actual human being that wants to work.
Yes.
As opposed to a static mortgage that was not even vetted.
Yes. So
I like to think about this more, but yes, it seems like
so I had 20 students, and then I started out teaching the philosophy of money, philosophy of Bitcoin, history of money, how wallets work, the ecosystem across the world, what are the companies that are involved in
full-on curriculum and a test-taking system and everything.
Not yet. So remember when you were asking that are there any problems or things that I see down the road. And I said, well, I don't know. I'll just start, and then along the way. So it's very iterative as it's going along. So when we started, we're looking at the curriculum from Chain Lab. They have some curriculum.
Yeah.
I think it was prepared by Adam Jonas.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
So we're looking at that. And they started a program, and like I said, I'm not a developer, all right? But then I knew down the road, I would probably find a developer who could take on the more technical sides of the program.
Which is where the community
Exactly.
angle from, yeah.
Yeah. So when I started, it was just, history of Bitcoin, the philosophy, the different tools, the different companies in the ecosystem. What are the mining companies? What are the exchanges? What are the marketplaces? Who are the people that are doing what and where? That's how we found Fako India, when we came to Cameroon, we did meetups and things like that. And of course, all of that brought the attention to Bitcoin Mountain. Right? I think that is what made Farida give us the invite to come for the conference.
Okay.
Now, being here at the conference, I actually met with Adam Jonas. Right. So so I explained what we're doing to the education. I was like, oh, well, that is a bit too complicated. So he is going to help us create a more useful curriculum.
Very nice.
See, but if we didn't start, it would not end up like this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I see now.
Yeah. And we feel that it would be the same thing, going forward. We've had a lot of people who are even looking to offer us grants.
Okay.
Right. But as much as possible, we want this to be a for-profit endeavor. So we're not sure how grants will fit into that.
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking to me, Gio. Appreciate it. And talk soon.
Sure.
All right, right on.